Day 2 of the 2023 NFL Draft is now officially over, and before we move into Day 3, I'd really like to document my favorite picks of the second and third rounds of the NFL Draft. Eventually I'll be giving grades to every pick of the draft and giving out team grades, but for right now I'd really just like to get my immediate thoughts out there after it just ended. Alright, enough talking, let's get into it. In the second round, at 59th overall, the Buffalo Bills selected Florida guard O'Cyrus Torrence. I have Torrence as one of my guys in this draft, and I think that he's going to be a top 5 guard in the league someday. He has the most seamless casual strength of any prospect I've ever seen. He has an incredible ability to anchor, and he could just absorb the momentum and power of any defensive lineman who attempts to try him. It's seriously scary how he just completely stops sprinting defenders in their tracks. He's like a brick wall. He plays with pretty good leverage, he consistently gets his hands into the chest of defensive linemen, he has great grip strength, 97th percentile hand size, 99th percentile wingspan, and 64th percentile arm length. He's fantastic in the run game because he can just move people out of the way completely, and he's very adept at sealing off gaps to create holes for the running back. He went the entirety of 2022 without allowing a single sack or quarterback hit, and without committing a penalty. In fact, he actually never allowed a single sack over the length of his entire career, which was 3,000 snaps. This past season, he had Anthony Richardson as his quarterback, so you could argue that he's never going to get sacked. He has great pocket presence and he's an elite athlete, so nobody's going to be able to catch him ever. But before that, he wasn't playing with Anthony Richardson, so he's still a very good pass blocker and he has room to grow. He has the athletic tools that you can build upon, and he already has a solid base and technique. I thought he was great, and I wouldn't have blinked if they picked him in the first round. At 47th overall, the Washington Commanders picked Jartavius Quan Martin out of Illinois. Martin's very versatile as a defensive prospect. He has the ability to play as a true single high safety because of his incredible range, and he also has the ability to play as a slot corner. He has insane acceleration, extremely fluid hips, great lateral agility, tight footwork, smooth transitions, and he's just a very reliable tackler. He consistently takes good angles to ball carriers, and he always puts himself in the position to end plays. He's a very physical player, and he has really good strength for his size. His above average ball skills and his sideline to sideline speed is incredible. He also does something that I really love to see in defensive players, in that he always ends up near the ball at the end of the play. If you watch any given play, even if he's not making the tackle, he's always near the ball at the end of it because he's just chasing downhill to get there every single time. His high-end athleticism and versatility gives defensive coordinators a lot of options for disguising coverages and having him rotate post-snap. He also put up some crazy combine numbers leading to an 8.95 RAS score. I honestly think that this guy is going to be a great player, and I think that it was a steal to get him at 47th overall. I don't know if I would have picked him in the first round, but I just really like the fit here of him going to the Commanders, and I just think he's going to be an incredible player for them. In round 3, with the 67th overall pick, the Denver Broncos selected linebacker Drew Sanders out of Arkansas. I have Sanders as the second highest rated linebacker in this class, and I really didn't see him falling to the third round. He has ideal size for the linebacker position, but he's such a great pass rusher that he's the versatility to play as an inside linebacker or edge. In fact, he was actually a former 5-star edge rusher with Alabama before he transferred to Arkansas. He has great speed for his size, which gives him sideline to sideline range as a linebacker, and he's the lateral quickness to consistently beat blockers to their spot. He plays with great leg drive to get through blocks. He's an effective swim move, great stack and shed ability. He's got good pop in his hands upon contact, and I actually found that he had pretty good vision in the run game for how inexperienced he is. I've seen other people talk about him being really bad in the run game, and it's possible that he will be. He's still very inexperienced as a linebacker because he's transferring over from edge and he just doesn't really have the experience there yet, but I thought that he did a good job at tracking the run generally. He's playing like a running back as a linebacker. He's finding the holes and he meets the running back there, and he has the speed and the lateral quickness to do that, so I think that he'll be a really good linebacker. He has the speed to be a good quarterback spy in the NFL too, and he had a high level of production in college, 103 tackles, 13.5 TFLs, 9.5 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, an interception, and 5 pass breakups in coverage. This guy eventually is going to be a do-it-all linebacker, and he was a steal in the third round. I'm going to talk about these next 2 picks because they're both by the same team, but I'll save the second one so that you guys don't get any spoilers. The first one is going to be Garrett Williams, the cornerback out of Syracuse, going to the Arizona Cardinals in the third round at the 72nd pick. Garrett Williams was kind of a hard prospect to evaluate because he only had 7 games in 2022, and he has incredible footwork and works really well in man, but he played the majority of his snaps in zone. If you just looked at his mirroring ability, he would be a top 5 cornerback in this class. The problem is that he's not that great at a lot of the other things in the game. But he has good zone IQ because he's played so much there, and he has the versatility to play in zone or man. He's quick to get his head around while the ball's in the air, and he shows pretty good long speed even though he wasn't able to test because he's coming off an injury. If he had been able to play the full season, he probably would have been an end of the first round pick, early second round, and he wouldn't have fell to the third. With the 94th pick, the Arizona Cardinals also selected wide receiver Michael Wilson out of Stanford, so he's going from the Cardinal to the Cardinals. If you follow this channel for even half a second, you know that I love Michael Wilson. He is probably my favorite prospect in this draft, and I have a whole video on him if you want to watch me break him down. So I'll be pretty short here. I think that he's a fantastic pick for them. If they get rid of DeAndre Hopkins, I'm not saying that he's just going to easily fill in. He still has injury issues, and he's got to develop more as a guy at the catch point. But he has so much incredible talent in his game, and he has so much potential. I could see him being an incredible player there. I'm a little bit worried about one of my favorite players going to Arizona because he's not going to have anybody to throw him the ball for like the first maybe 6 weeks of the season, and I'll look like a complete dumbass. But I love Michael Wilson, and I think that he's going to be an incredible player here. I think he's an absolute steal in the third. I would have personally taken him in the second, and that's just because of his injury issues. Next, we have Cedric Tillman, the wide receiver from Tennessee, going 74th overall to the Cleveland Browns. Tillman is one of the few X receivers in this class, alongside Michael Wilson. He's a super physical receiver. He has the ability to turn 50-50 balls into just 70-30 balls. His 6'3" size is 81st percentile. And he has an incredibly long catch radius because of his long arms at 72nd percentile. He had an RAS score of 9.22, so he moves really well for his size. And you might not see it on his 2022 tape because he had some issues with an ankle, but in his 2021 tape, you could see that he's pretty explosive as a player. He'll run through arm tackles, he jumps and high points the football, he catches the ball through contact, he does a great job adjusting to the ball in the air, and he's also a threat for some yards after the catch too. He doesn't have particularly quick feet, so that it's kind of difficult for him to get like a really good release, but he has the strength to get off press at the line, and his size and ball skills give him the ability to easily play on the outside. He's also a threat in the red zone because of his size. I think that he could play really, really well for the Browns. With the 79th pick in the draft, the Indianapolis Colts selected Josh Downs out of UNC, the wide receiver. I think that Josh Downs is going to be a great talent, and I'm so excited to see him paired with Anthony Richardson. If you want to hear something interesting, he's 5'9", and he had a contested catch rate of 72.2%, and he was tied for 27th in the nation with 13 contested catches. He had a way better contested catch rate than Quentin Johnston, who's 6'4", and had a contested catch rate of 34.8%. He's going to threaten it as a punt returner. He has very reliable hands. He only has a 3.1% drop rate. His 1.49 10-yard split just shows his ability to absolutely just accelerate on a dime and just burst. He's a very bouncy player with light footwork, and he's a pretty savvy route runner who has a good feel for how to manipulate defenders in order to create separation. I don't want to ever compare anybody to Tyreek Hill, and I don't really think that he is like Tyreek Hill, but I think what is interesting and the intriguing part about Josh Downs is that he's like Tyreek Hill in the sense that he's a small guy, but he can also win at the catch point, and he's really good at kind of bodying up guys and putting himself in position to get the ball in contested catch situations, despite being short. I don't know if he'll be able to continue to do that at the NFL level, but I'm really interested to see, and I think that even if he can't, he still has an incredible ability in all other facets of the game. Running after the catch, he's just an absolute mismatch, so it's going to be really interesting to see how he pairs with Anthony Richardson, and I'm just really excited about this pick for them. Lastly, we're going to talk about Kobe Turner, the interior defensive lineman from Wake Forest. This guy is known as the composer because he literally writes his own music and conducts orchestras. This guy is a proficient musician, and he was deciding whether he wanted to go play football or be a musician for his whole life, so that's honestly like the sickest thing ever. I think it's interesting how he'll pair with Aaron Donald because he's really just a 3-tech, so I don't know if you can have them both on the field at the same time. He has a pretty good anchor for his size, and he's actually a pretty violent rusher. He plays with a lot of pop in his hands, and he keeps his feet constantly moving so that he remains a nuisance to offensive linemen during the play. He's a very high motor player, and he doesn't stop until the whistle blows, and he gives us all. He's also a very intelligent guy. He just knows what he's looking at on the football field, and he knows how to anticipate plays, and you could see it all over his tape. He has 43.5 tackles for losses in his collegiate career, and he just shows great play diagnosis and block recognition. He showed a pretty good balanced ability to win in both the pass and the interior run game, and I think that he's just going to be a really good player for them. I don't know if he's going to make an impact necessarily in his first year, but I think that he has so much potential for them, and I'm really, really intrigued to see how Kobe Turner does for the Rams. Alright, so this was some of the deeper guys that I really wanted to get into. I do like some other picks in this draft. I really like Joey Porter Jr., Michael Mayer, Matthew Bergeron, Jonathan Mingo, Brian Branch, BJ Ojolari, who I have a whole video on. I love the Gervin Dexter pick to the Bears. I think he has a ton of potential there. And I really, really like the John Michael Schmitz pick to the Giants. Other ones that I didn't list here is I like Deion Henley going to the Chargers, Trenton Simpson going to the Ravens, and Dorian Williams going to the Bills. I also wanted to go and just look at some picks I didn't really like all that much, and it's not necessarily because of the players in all of the situations, it could just be the fit or the value. I didn't really like the Sam Laporta pick. I thought the value just wasn't there. I thought that there was a lot better players that you could have picked in that spot. Laporta to me is not really a guy who's going to make incredible catches or anything. He'll come up with the easy schemed up looks, and he will do a really good job getting yards after the catch for you. And I think that it'll work in Ben Johnson's offense. It's just that you could have gotten somebody who can do the same thing later on in the draft. I didn't like the Isaiah Foskey pick to the Saints, and that's just because I'm personally not a big fan of his play style. He lacks bend as an edge rusher, and he has to win with power, and I just didn't have him as a second round value. I had him much further down the board. I hope he proves me wrong. I always hope the players prove me wrong because I don't want to see anybody do badly, but ultimately, I just did not like the value. Cody Mauch, I actually really like the player. I like him a lot. I just hate the fit here. I just don't understand why the Buccaneers were interested in him. I'm very surprised that he went to the Buccaneers because I'm pretty sure that they ran like a power or like inside zone kind of run game. And he's one of the best blockers on the move in this class, but he's just not powerful at all. He's not going to get guys to really move off their spot. And they have a really heavy need at tackle, and he projects as a guard, and I'm worried that they're going to kind of try to square peg round hole him here and put him at tackle because that's where he played in college, but I really don't think that's his best spot. I think that if he plays a tackle, he's not going to be that great. So I just didn't really like that pick. If he literally went the next pick, I don't even know who was the next pick. If he just went to like any other team, he might have been in my part of this video that had the graphics because I liked him, but I just don't like the pick here for the Buccaneers specifically, unless they intend on changing their run game and the style that they play with, but I mean, that remains to be seen. I didn't like the Zach Charbonnet pick. Again, I really like the player, but I just don't understand why they needed to pick him here. I know that they got Derek Hall, so they didn't really need to keep adding pieces to the defensive line, but there were just way more guys that they could have taken here at more high-value positions. They already have Kenneth Walker there, and I understand they're going to be in a rotation, and Charbonnet is actually best utilized in a rotation because he's kind of a power runner, like very north to south, so him and Kenneth Walker will actually be really, really good together. I don't doubt that for a second. I just don't love the value of the pick. The Rashee Rice pick, I just didn't really like. He is a small receiver who wins primarily trying to out-physical other guys. If you watch his tape, you'd think he's like 6'3", but he's actually not. He's 6 foot. And I mean, I know I just said before with Josh Downs, it's like incredible that he's small and he's able to win at the catch point, but Josh Downs has so much more to his game, whereas Rashee Rice really just doesn't. Very inconsistent as a player. He has some games where he looks really great, and then other games where he just doesn't look good at all. And he just really tries to win with physicality, which can work at the college level when you're a smaller receiver, but I really don't know if he's going to be able to continue to do that in the NFL, and I don't think that there's enough left in his game that he's going to be able to overcome that. The other problem is that I just think there were so many better receivers there on the board that they could have taken. Marvin Mims was a pick that I really liked for the Chiefs. I think it would have been a great pick there. Jalen Hyatt was still there. Tank Dell was still there. Cedric Tillman, Michael Wilson. Two of the guys who I already went over before were there. And they went with Rashee Rice. And I just don't think it was a good idea. I just don't really like the pick, and I don't like the value. Lastly was the Jair Brown pick, the safety from Penn State, going to the 49ers. I just didn't really think he was a third-round player. I think he'll maybe be a quality backup someday, but I don't really ever see him being like a good starter. He plays very physical, but he kind of relies pretty heavily on his instincts. He's not really a great athlete. He had a 3.68 RAS score, and obviously I'm not just trying to go over the measurables or like what the numbers say, but that's a really bad score. And on tape it shows. He just doesn't have a lot of range, in my opinion. He's kind of stiff, and his change of direction is about average. He's not that great in coverage. He had a 3.4% forced incompletion rate, which is below average. He allowed 22 receptions on 29 targets. He had a 4.65 40-yard dash. He's undersized, and he's not that powerful. Like, for example, he got trucked by 5'8" Mohamed Ibrahim. To be fair, he's a power back, but still, it just shows that he's just not powerful enough, and he doesn't win with athleticism, so I just don't really understand why they picked him. I think that he has the intangibles and the motor to eventually be a quality backup, or maybe even an average starter. I just don't know why you take that in the 3rd round. And I mean, following this too, the freaking Jake Moody pick, I didn't list that on here, but that was stupid. I just didn't get that one at all. Why do you pick a kicker in the end of the 3rd round? There are so many guys that can still be contributors here that I really like. Even if you don't intend on playing them, you could at least get some value in like trading them later or something. I don't know what you're going to get out of a kicker. You could literally find any random kicker on the street. I hope that he's the best damn kicker in the world and that he proves me wrong, but I just don't like that pick at all. The last thing that I want to rant about that I hated was the Packers trading down out of the Brian Branch pick. This pissed me off so much when I was watching it live. I know that Tom Grossi had a really funny reaction to it. I actually love Tom Grossi and the Grossi-Perna show. Highly recommend that you watch it if you haven't, because they're hysterical. But I know that he was also pissed too, and I mean, if I was a Packers fan, I'm not even a Packers fan, and I was angry about it. Because you need a safety. It's one of their biggest needs, and this is such a shallow safety class. There was like practically nobody after Brian Branch and Jartavius Martin. I mean, I liked Sidney Brown, but I didn't really think that he was like a 3rd round guy. I think he's a solid pick for the Eagles, but I don't know. I might have waited until like the 4th or 5th to get him, but he wasn't going to be a starter day 1, definitely. And they need a starter. They need a starter at safety, and they had that in Brian Branch. And not only did they not take him, they actually just gave him to a division rival, and he's going to be a quality starter there now for like 10 years. So I just didn't get it, but that's going to be the end of that rant, and that's also going to be the end of this video. These are just my immediate thoughts on day 2 of the draft. Similar to my last video, I'd kind of like to go back and look at like my favorites in the 2nd round and see how they eventually panned out. So in 3 years, there'll be a video about that if you're super excited about it. But yeah, these are just my immediate thoughts. If you enjoyed, I'd really appreciate if you guys liked and subscribed. But otherwise, later.